your thought with Brandon Allen, whether to let him try to get him through, or did you think that he might get picked up?
Yeah, we wish we could have, but we had pretty good knowledge that we think he would have got claimed. And if there was a third quarterback out there you could put on your practice squad you felt as good with, then it wouldn't be an issue. But when he's going to get claimed and how we feel about him, it was important to keep him.
As previously mentioned, that's Kyle Shanahan talking about the decision to keep Brandon Allen on the 53-man roster, using the term claimed as a reference to waivers. The problem is Brandon Allen has been around long enough that he wouldn't have been subject to waivers. They could have worked something out with him where, all right, we're going to cut you, we're going to sign you to the practice squad. And maybe what Kyle was saying is he'd have another opportunity somewhere else, and he'd tell us, I'm not hanging around for your practice squad, even if you are going to call me up from time to time or do whatever, or I'm going to be here in the event you have another rash of injuries, and I can eventually be the guy who's playing quarterback for you. I'm going to go somewhere else, and I'm going to get paid accordingly. I still think, Chris, that there's an unanswered question, and he was never asked this, hasn't been asked this, and it's probably too late for anyone at a press conference to ask him this question. Who was your third quarterback at the time you traded Trey Lance? Was it Brandon Allen or was it Lance? We just assume it was Lance. And you know and I know there are people who think that one of the reasons they're doing cartwheels over getting a fourth-round pick and shedding the entire Trey Lance contract, Trey Lance was number 4, not number 3 in San Francisco.
Well, yeah. Hey, listen, I think there's some people that, saw practices, saw scrimmages, thought Brandon Allen looked better than Trey Lance. Some of that for sure, right? I think people around the league, I think there's a lot of people that are still surprised that Trey Lance, that the 49ers got a fourth-round pick for Trey Lance. No doubt about that, right? I do, I don't know if we'll ever know the answer to that question, because even if Brandon Allen was beating out Trey Lance by a slight bit, they were never going to show that. There's no way. They were never going to put it on the roster or on the depth chart as him number 4. That would take the blowing of the draft pick and all that to another level. So I know they wanted to keep 3 quarterbacks. Shanahan said that a bunch of times. I think that if they couldn't find a suitor for Trey Lance, that Trey Lance would be 3 and Brandon Allen probably would be somewhere else. Yeah, I don't think he was subject to waivers, but I think he's a guy that would have been picked up. And I think the 49ers had some inside info that there was a few teams that were very interested in him. And the one team I heard throughout the league where a lot of people thought Brandon Allen was back to the Bengals, where he came from. And, of course, Joe Burrow's been hurt, and he knows that offense. So that seems to be the team that if you let Brandon Allen go, he was going to go back to Cincinnati, and you weren't going to have that. So, I think ultimately that's probably why they didn't try to finagle something like you're talking about there. And once they got the Trey Lance trade done, they know they wanted 3 quarterbacks, and they felt comfortable, very comfortable with Brandon Allen being the third quarterback.
The first flicker regarding Brandon Allen competing successfully against Trey Lance came from me when Shanahan spoke with Michael Silver of the San Francisco Chronicle and raised the idea of keeping 4 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster, something the Shanahans did once upon a time in Washington, where West Virginia great Pat White was quarterback 4 for a while to start the season. And then when Shanahan was asked about it a few days later about keeping 4, he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I got a month to figure that out. And I think he didn't want to put too many breadcrumbs out there for people like me who write annoying headlines to raise the question of whether or not Trey Lance was falling to QB 4, because you're not getting a 4th-round pick for him. And you're not getting the Cowboys to pay $6.3 million over the next 2 years with the 49ers on the hook for 0 if people think he's your 4th-string quarterback. And you're just going to cut him. That's the thing. If they hadn't traded him, if they hadn't found a trade partner, what would they have done with Trey Lance? Would they have cut him or would they have kept him? We'll never know the answer to that question. But the fact that they were so happy to get a 4 from the Cowboys and shed the contract, it kind of tells me Allen was 3 and Lance was 4.
I don't disagree with you there. I don't think there's any way Trey Lance wouldn't have been the 3, though. Because of the optics, because of the politics, because of all of it. And, like we said, kind of leading up to it too, Mike, I think too, if it did get to Trey Lance and he got a chance to go out there and play, they could kind of like, hey, look, he was pretty good. And, I think there was still a hope that might happen to salvage that look or the conversation around, trading away the draft picks to get him. But I hear you. It is interesting. I don't know if we'll ever know the answer to that question, but I don't think, just knowing Shanahan and knowing coaches in general, that would cause more problems and more issues and whatever else. I think Trey Lance would have been the third if they couldn't have traded him.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.